Here is the first Nami picture that I ever tried my hand at, brothers and sisters, and certainly think it turned out alright. If you enjoy this type of drawing and more, remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the Google+. One Piece Chapter 191, She Who Controls the Weather. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and Nami-filled tale of One Piece. Now, as you all know, certainly Nami is, if I had to pick out a favorite character just for their development, their personality, their background, I have taken the dark horse in Nami, at least for the time being, and really only because I like all the characters, I truly do, and I think they all have their qualities and attributes, but Nami, for me, again, is just kind of the dark horse, and just sort of seemed like one that there's not a bunch of people that are on the bandwagon about. And unlike probably many people that like Nami for the way she's drawn, that doesn't really particularly sway me in a direction either way. So anyway, the last chapter though was it was really about kind of revealing the powers that that Mr. One and Miss Doublefinger had, and the second half of the chapter was Miss Doublefinger and her power of the spike fruit coming after Nami. Nami trying to use the Climate Baton, which Usopp had created for her, to no avail. It really just sort of seemed like a magic show parlor trick type deal. Flowers coming out of it, pigeons, everything else. So that's where the chapter leaves off, pretty much thinking, oh boy, this is not going to be good, right? And that's where the chapter picks up. It picks up with Miss Doublefinger just kind of going and, sorry, you're going to have to die type of deal, and just coming at Nami for a few pages, attacking, and Nami's trying to dodge, and she's getting hit, but not full force because she moved, and kind of shucking and jiving, that sort of thing. So it really is kind of cool, and it shows that even though Nami is not the strongest fighter in the world, she can still be fairly resilient. Now, I can put that akin to just because of my eyesight, I wasn't always the best at some of the different sports and stuff like that growing up. However, I was great at a game like dodgeball, for instance, in grade school. And although it may sound stupid, I had decent strength throwing the ball, and although because my depth perception wasn't the greatest because of my eyesight, I wasn't super great at catching the ball, but I could dodge like a motherfucker. You know what I mean? I could roll and spin and dive and everything else, and that's because years ago I was in the martial arts. I was very limber, and just it was easy for me to just kind of move and dodge very quickly. So. At any rate, that's kind of what I'm comparing this to over here, because she's really just trying to, at this point, she's trying to hold out and figure out what it is that she can in fact do to take out to take her out. So take out Miss Doublefinger. So she winds up going in. Miss Doublefinger's like, oh, is that all the tricks you got? And she's like, no, I got tons more. And she goes to go and make the Climate Baton look like a Y, and she's going to use this thing from it, and it's going to be thunder something or whatever, right? And it winds up being a fist on a one of those extending fists that comes out like a pop-out fist, and extends out towards Miss Doublefinger, and just kind of just trails off, or maybe she bats it away, I don't know, but either way, it's not looking good. So then she winds up going, Miss Doublefinger's like, I got no more time to play with you, Excuse me, I had a cold coming on here, so trying to dry throat combat that. And so anyway, then there's like this archway overhead, because they're of course in Alabarna in the city, fighting. And Miss Doublefinger goes and sticks to the ceiling, which Nami's like, how the hell can she hang upside down to the ceiling, right? Well, because she can make spikes come from anywhere in her body, they show that there's spikes coming out of her heels and her hands, and then she's able to basically Spider-Man up on the wall, or up on the ceiling above, and this archway. So she goes to do that, and then she goes to do this Spiked Hedgehog, or this hedgehog spiked whatever. Everything has to do with obviously spikes, and she goes and basically turns into like this human spike ball, like a hedgehog, right? Or a porcupine, and she goes to drop down on Nami, and Nami's like, just dives at the last minute out of the way, and then she's running, and she's like, hey, give me just a minute here, give me a minute, and Miss Doublefinger's coming after her, She winds up ducking into, looking for cover. There's no cover around. She ducks into a building. As she goes into the building, and Miss Doublefinger's like, basically like, it's all over type of thing. Nami's like, I refuse to die. And then she goes and she pulls off her like cape that was kind of covering over her, like just basically like the poncho that she was wearing, that kind of helps with the sands and the heat and the cold, everything else. She pulls this thing off and kind of whips it out in front of Miss Doublefinger is where she's comes, so Miss Doublefinger spikes right through that, and Nami's able to kind of roll and get out of the way. And Miss Doublefinger's like, okay, so she's not a novice at fighting. She actually has some type of skills whatsoever, kind of thinking maybe I underestimated her. So that's the whole first half of the chapter. The second half of the chapter is where it really gets cool, because Nami goes, and then she goes out there, and she's reading on these instructions and whatnot, and she notices that the instructions that she was reading was the side for performing at like kids' parties and stuff like that, like the novelty side. And then it said for combat instructions, read the other side. So there's a number of different holes in that whole little plot over there, because she was reading off these things that are supposedly for kids' parties, but yet she made it sound like they were going to be, the way she explained them and described them in the last chapter in this one, like they were going to be these thunderous things. So, but whatever, that's fine. So it's just real funny how the whole thing goes, and Usopp goes and creates this thing that, not only is this weapon, but it can also entertain children, So she goes and looks on the back of it to read the reverse side for the instructions, and that's kind of how the second half of the chapter goes. But it's kind of cool because she goes and stands there all stoic-like and looking all cool with her, Alabasta, like whatever go-go dancer, whatever the hell that dancer-type outfit on. And basically now she's standing there, she's got the baton, she's looking confident, she's looking badass like one of the Straw Hats, like this is where I'm going to make a stand. So she goes and Miss Doublefinger's like, oh yeah, where all this, confidence come from all of a sudden, right? So basically it's because, she read the instructions, and now she's trying to do things. So then there's this 3-panel page where Miss Doublefinger just stands there in the distance, right? And she goes and she's like, do it this way, a blast of warm air. And Miss Doublefinger's like, ooh, it feels kind of warm. And then she's like, and do this, cold air. And she's like, ooh, yeah, I feel a little chilly or a little cold, And then she's like, and then add in electricity, and goes and does that in the third panel. And she's like, ooh, I felt a little tingle, So it still is doing nothing to her, right? She still hasn't figured out the inner workings and how to actually use this Climate Baton properly, right? So Miss Doublefinger then goes and she's like, listen, I've got no more time for this. I got to take you out, So she does like this like spiked high heel type thing where basically spikes come out of her feet and she starts like coming towards her, like almost like walking on stilts. And as Nami's turning and going to run, one of these spikes goes through like, looks like the back of her ankle. And Nami's like, oh, I don't want to die here type of thing, So as Miss Doublefinger is coming in for the final blow, and she's going to jump and do the killing blow and just spike her, and she's kind of like, sorry, but I got to take you out, right? Nami goes and turns, and she's like, thunder something, whatever it was, thunderball, thunder what, and she just whips this thing out, and it jacks up Miss Doublefinger and knocks her back, right? So then she goes and she proceeds to go and read the instructions further, and really what it is it seems like Usopp didn't even really have a full handle on what exactly the extent of this weapon could do. But basically the changes in temperature when the cold air and the warm air, and if you use it right, it can create like boom, this thunderstorm. So then she goes on to read about like the ultimate tornado blow, right? And it's like, and they show a picture of Usopp, like he's talking and, giving an instructional video on it. And he's like, only use this in like extreme emergencies because it's like, you only got one shot. And then I don't know if the Climate Baton then doesn't work after that, or it has to like recharge, or it has to be fixed. I don't know if it's rendered useless, what have you. I just know that it's cool because obviously she sees that she's going to have this opportunity, and you think, okay, that's where it's going to go. She's going to look for the right opening and then be able to take her out. So ultimately, we wind up finding out about that and kind of alluding to this ultimate, tornado blow or whatever that she's going to be able to do. And then the next couple of pages, Nami goes and she's able to use, another portion of this thing or whatever to hurt Miss Doublefinger. And it's really kind of cool. I tell you the truth, I forget for the life of me now, and I don't know if it's probably just the fact between me being sick and everything else that, I'm forgetting some of the different things. Because it really was a cool action-packed chapter. But ultimately, what winds up happening is then she goes, and as she kind of goes and does that inner monologue or hears Usopp talking, then in the next panel on the next page, there's a picture of Nami, right? And you see Miss Doublefinger, the word bubble, her going, never take you, this is Mortal Kombat, and I'm thinking, Mortal Kombat! But anyway, so any of you who get that reference probably are maybe as old as me, or at least have heard it. But anyway, so she says, never take your eyes off your opponent when you're locked in Mortal Kombat. And that very panel, she goes and she extends her fingers, or her spike fingers, and there's one that goes through Nami's throat and a couple through, and I'm thinking, oh, what the fuck? She can't come back from that. But then immediately I thought about it, and I'm like, there's got to be something with like a clone or an image or something, right? So it turns out, sure as shit, in the next couple of panels, you see Nami standing like 10 feet away, and she's like, yeah, she's like, and then, Miss Doublefinger's like amazed. She's like, how, And Nami goes and she explains that, you know, when the air is cooled to a certain temperature and this and that happens, the light can refract off, causing, you know, basically like an illusion, you know. And I'm thinking, man, that's cool. And Nami's like, and it's cool too because Nami, right, who's a thief, you know, because she's like, she even said earlier when she made the stage, like, I've been a thief for 8 years and I've run and I've never been this and that. I'm not gonna run. I'm gonna fight. It was kind of cool because it was really her going and realizing, like, listen, I don't have to run from this. Like, I'm smart enough to go and to win a battle. Similar to like Usopp, where you can win a battle without being the strongest. You don't have to be the strongest, you know, dog in the fight to win, right? You just have to be the one with the biggest heart or the most, you know, ingenuity and intelligence. So really kind of cool. I thought the chapter ends up, you know, right after that. It's basically like, okay, you know that they're going to go, and I don't know if it's going to be in the next chapter, a couple down the road, but you know that their battle is coming to its climax, to its conclusion. But you really see that because Nami's like, this is my kind of weapon. And I really like that because for her, obviously the deception of it and the different things that you can use it for, just seeing those couple of powers that it can be used for, definitely the type of thing that I could see Nami, you know, utilizing and making good use of. So ultimately, though, my chapter question is, what do you think of the Climate Baton itself? To me, it seemed a little bit senseless and needless. I mean, why would Usopp create this weapon for that also has these uses as, you know, parlor tricks basically for a kid's birthday party and then have instructions on both sides? Maybe it was something that he was working on previous, you know, and then just kind of modified it because he had a short amount of time. But what, regardless of what the answer is to it, what is your thoughts, brothers and sisters, on the Climate Baton and its uses as we've seen in this chapter? Leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation. As always, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for liking, sharing, commenting, rating, subscribing, and just being a part of the nation. We love you all.